Hey guys, there is nothing like talking about the things we read in March at the end of April, but here we are. Hey guys, if you are new here, welcome to The Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. So yeah, it is April 23rd right now as I'm filming this. Very late in the game, and it is quite the filming day because this isn't the only video I'm filming, but so April was a bit of a hectic month. So we had a family birthday, we had a spring break, we had allergy season, which hit in ways I did not imagine. I've had seasonal allergies for a while. I've heard that there was an allergy cough, never had it myself until this month. And it hit hard to where it felt like I had the cough and congestion of a flu. So it knocked me on my butt for a bit and just wasn't really getting around to filming at any point in time because it was just constant either headaches or allergy whatevers. But we are on the mend because allergy season will hopefully be over soon here. I still have a little bit of the cough. I've been taking 2 different types of allergy medicine, which is norm for me. But the new one is just using my inhaler a little bit more, which I tend to have to use during allergy season, and then adding a little bit of like a saline mist nebulizer going on, which luckily now I'm really only down to using that like before bed. So it should hopefully be on its way out, but yeah, the coughs have not been fun. And we're just going to have to go forward and think about how to handle that for next year. Maybe just start taking the allergy medicine way in advance. But yeah, so not a lot of filming getting done. We were reading. And so that is why we are here today to talk about everything that we read in March. So let's go ahead and get started. First up, we ended up reading Sweet Obsession by Katie Robert. This is the was it the 8th or 9th book? I've kind of lost count in this series. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, so 8 books in the Dark Olympus series, which is the kind of mythological retellings in like a kind of contemporary mafia type society. I have been loving the series. And a lot of the books have been either 4 or 5 stars for me. This one is about Icarus and Poseidon. This is a male romance. There is spicy scenes in there. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It wasn't bad, but in comparison to the other series, the emotional intimacy that was there that really lent to the spicy scenes wasn't as big here. This felt very rushed for what it was, because it was kind of like the captive enemies to lovers, while everything seems to be imploding around them type of scenario. I just wasn't really pulled in emotionally for these characters. It was very easy to see right away that they were going to fall for each other really quickly, and they did, like, really quickly. And it just, I think because everything was happening so quickly and there wasn't much of, like, the butting of the heads that you would expect to see, the tension wasn't really there like it was in her last book. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. Wasn't bad. It definitely had a lot of kind of what was going on in Olympus and what's been building from the other series. So like definitely still worth the read. It's just in comparison to the other books in the series, where you have, you know, all these spicy, emotionally driven relationships. This one just kind of fell a little flat for me. But it was still, you know, still a good book. I ended up reading this one for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge for 2025 with the beginning of 2026, which was to read an LGBTQIA plus book. And it fulfilled that prompt. And this also, it brought me one book closer to finishing out the series, because I think there's only like maybe 2 more books after this that for the series. It's a longer series, but like I said, I had been pulled in for a majority of these books. I'm definitely going to continue this series. It's just this one wasn't as much my favorite as other books in the series. So next up, we had an arc, and just for the record, all the arcs that I mention in this video were given to me with the understanding that I'm going to give an honest review. I know I've said that in other videos, but gotta say it out there. I don't want to be getting in trouble for anything. As well as that all the arcs that I mentioned are obviously out because this is a little bit later in the game. So for this arc, we ended up reading Kept by the Pack by Nora Quinn. This was my first introduction into the, I guess what they call the Omega verse, where you have usually a reverse harem situation, multiple alpha style, or not necessarily werewolf, but very much similarities to the kind of behaviors and things that you would expect in like a werewolf mate or werewolf romance. But I understand the Omega verse now. I can understand why so many people like really love those books, and I definitely will be exploring the Omega verses going forward because it was good. You basically have Millie, who is in this town, and she's grown up with her kind of 2 male besties, Maddox and Liam. Liam and her kind of had this on again, off again kind of romance, but she didn't want it getting away in the way of their friendship. This is also like an Omega verse where you have these alphas, betas, and then you have the Omegas, and the Omegas tend to go into like heat in massive ways, and there's like these suppression medicines and things that they can take that kind of help get them through it. But yes, it is a thing that's kind of the main component of these relationships and dynamics. And anyway, you have Knox, who is a little bit older, and he is moving from the city where he is divorcing a woman that they didn't have the child together. It's his stepdaughter, but he's kind of been with her from infancy. And he's dealing with that struggle because he really does love this child, as his own. And that kind of like hit home for me. And there were some really great, quotes that he talked about, with, things didn't, just because things didn't work out with her mother, it doesn't mean that, he didn't love her any less, or that she's no longer his daughter, and like just all these things, that they could still have that relationship, and just kind of the way that went, which, like I said, it home, and I liked that aspect. But Knox ends up moving to the town where Millie and Maddox and Liam are, and Millie is at kind of a crossroads because, she knows Liam wants more in his relationship with her. She is not aware that Maddox also has feelings for her because Maddox has kept them quiet due to his friendship with Liam and with her. Liam works at like I think it's a cafe with Millie, and then Maddox is like in the fire. I think he's in the fire department. Or as a paramedic, he works in some type of emergency services. And Knox has come along to be part of like the police force. I think he's like one of the like the police chief or the police sergeant, whichever it is. But he's kind of come along there to this small town, and of course he meets Millie and hits things off with Millie right away. And trying to process things because obviously he's new to town. He doesn't want to upset his daughter by thinking on that he's like moved on so quickly, but obviously it is the alpha omega part of this Omega verse, and things just start happening. There's some things going on around the town that make it so that the suppressions for the Omegas are limited quantities, and obviously Millie is going to run out, so what's kind of happening down the pipeline. But it happens, and you have all the relationship dynamics of, can we move past friendships and who's loving who, and can we share the love with this woman, and it just kind of goes from there. And I liked it. I liked the relationship dynamics. I liked the kind of tension that was created, the trust and the bonding, and kind of working their way through the emotions of, wanting you all to myself, or can I share you, or what is it that you need, and just kind of how everything merged together, and it wrapped up kind of in a cute way. So I enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I just wanted, there were some times where I felt like the things that would happen were resolved very quickly, and I kind of wanted a little bit more to go on with that to get it to resolve. But I ended up giving, like I said, 4 stars. I used this for Romanceopoly, for the Secret Stacks book club, which is for their undercover gem prompt, which was to read a Kindle book with under 1,000 reviews. As of April 19th, I double checked it. It still only had about 51 reviews on Goodreads, so it still has, less than 1,000 reviews. So we used it for that one. And, like I said, recommend it if you haven't heard of the Omegaverse. Definitely, I guess, dive right in if reverse harems is your thing, because it definitely fits that fantastically. Next up, we had another arc, and that arc was Almost Mine, Still Yours by Haley True. In this one, we have Bailey and Liam again. I know it was a popular name. It's funny on so many levels to me. But basically, Bailey and Liam have kind of grown up since childhood. They've butted heads. Bailey had a crush on him at one point. He was like the older brother of her bestie, and something happens, and basically Liam becomes like this grumpy, sheltered, like don't trust anybody type of person. Him and his sister have obviously gone through some things with their family, and Bailey's family had been one to step in to kind of help them. And so Bailey had moved away from the city, from the small town that they lived in to the city, wanting like more in life, and obviously suffers a little relationship taboos while in the city with the guy she thought would be the one, and finds herself back in her small town. And the little tiny farmhouse, or this little tiny home that she falls in love with, she finds out it is a little sub parcel of Liam's farm property that he lives on. And so, of course, they are back to butting heads while each is secretly crushing on the other. And obviously, Bailey's like, I can't love my best friend's older brother. And obviously, Liam's like, I can't love my little sister's best friend. And so it just had all those little kind of moments to it. All while having that kind of enemies to lovers quips and like smart aleck comments towards each other, and things like that. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I did enjoy it. It was really cute and kind of what it needed to be. But the main tension in this was whether or not the best friend / sister would approve of them being together. And for me, that wasn't enough of a reason for why they were kind of doing the things that they did. Because I think everybody pretty much knew. Like it was fairly obvious throughout the story that they were both into each other. So like if the sister didn't know, I'm like, she would have had to have been blind, because it was very evident. So like for me, that was just not really like big to create like the tension and for that to happen. Like there was a little tiny moment with Bailey's ex, which I wanted that to turn into more, because that would have given something, but not so much. So, but other than that, like I said, it was really cute and had some spicy moments to it. I ended up giving it, like I said, 4 stars. This one I also ended up using in Romanceopoly for the romantic arts, which is kind of the contemporary romance, for the Pine Hill House prompt, which was a second chance or small town romance. And seeing that this was kind of, once again, they both crushed on each other, let it slip through their fingers, second chance. And it does take place in a small town. So, I mean, check. done. So we ended up going on and moving on to book 1 in the Dark Inheritance trilogy, which was The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. This was an interesting book. I mean, you had basically the character of Vasa, who is a princess that is, she has magical abilities kind of in a land where they don't have a lot of magical abilities. Her brother is just power hungry, and basically you find out that she has been offered in like an arranged marriage to a neighboring kingdom that has magic. However, this is like enemy territory, and obviously she's been told all these horrible things about this guy, and she ends up like going to marry him, and then on like the wedding night, like tying him up and then like abandoning him in a very awkward scene. And obviously he ends up finding her, bringing her back, and you end up finding out that he is trying to vie for a leadership position within all these kind of territories. And in order to do that, he needs to kind of present a united front. And so if she will stay with him throughout, you know, this time frame to help him like seal his spot, then afterwards he will give her like the divorce and she can go on her way and be free. And of course, while she's there, she learns that his mother runs like a small coven that has magic that is similar to hers, which is surprising to her. And so she's trying to learn more about her magic, her powers, and then in doing so, she starts to learn more about her mother and the past and what was really supposed to happen, and that this like somewhat tyrannical king that she thinks she's supposed to have married is not that way at all. So obviously in comes the romance, and all the while her power hungry brother is making some plans of his own. So this is book 1 in the trilogy. I ended up giving it 4 stars. There was a lot in the beginning that just felt a little lagging. Like stuff was going on, but it was mostly, oh, I'm practicing my magic. I'm training my magic another day. I'm trying to learn more about my mother. So it felt like Reed, the male protagonist in this that she's supposed to love, they weren't meeting often. And when they were meeting, it was very civil. So you didn't really get a lot of like the enemy's quibs and remarks and the I'm gonna fight you and all these things that would lend to like that tension that you're looking for in an enemies to lovers romance. And so I'm sorry, that was really freaky. Something just fell over and I'm the only one home. So apparently our house might have ghosts, who knows. Anyway, so when you're reading this, it's just not feeling very like, it just felt kind of lagging to me until it did start picking up towards the end, which, you know, really definitely got you a little more interested. Things were resolved a little quickly in some of these things, but it did start opening up to expand the world a little bit more and what might be going on, which made me interested to pick up, you know, the sequel when it comes out. So that's kind of what ended up giving it 4 stars. It probably is on the lower side of a 4-star, but it was what it kind of needed to be. I just wish it would have had a little bit more scenes between Vasa and Reed and kind of a little bit more of the enemies to lovers tension. But I ended up using this one for the Our Fantasy Bingo for 2025, which was to just have a mood read. It was one of the change squares that we had, and this was my mood read. And this one also ended up filling a requirement for Romanceopoly, which was part of the core curriculum or the core sets that you're supposed to, like everybody that does the challenge is supposed to do. And that one is Romance Hall, which was to read a book with a classic love trope, such as enemies to lovers. So I did choose it because it is an enemies to lovers trope. So we finished that one. Next up, we started doing some audiobooks for while I was kind of working. And I usually don't do a lot of audiobooks because for me, the narration, the voice doesn't match what I'm thinking when I hear like the descriptions of the characters, and it really just throws me, or the way that they read things just really throws me. But I needed something to listen to because, yeah. So I ended up picking up the audiobook from Libby, the book Imposter by Tate James. I have like 1 or 2 books by Tate James, and I've been wanting to read her stuff because a lot of it sounded like it was right up my alley. And this was more on the fantasy romance side. Imposter is book 1 in the Royal Trials, and basically what you have is you have this world where there was magic in the world, there was a queen, something happened, the queen gets killed, her daughter goes missing, everybody presumes the daughter is dead, and another family kind of comes to power, and their 3 sons have magic, and they use their magic to kind of keep like this kind of darkness at bay type of situation. And what they're doing is they're going around trying to find a queen or a potential queen candidate to marry one of the sons, and in hopes that this union will bring about like peace in the land and like make whatever darkness this is kind of go away and return peace, prosperity, and all these things to the land. And in order to find their future queen, they are holding these trials, which they invite all these eligible women to compete. And what ends up happening is you have this kind of street urchin named Rybet, who has grown up kind of as a thief under one of these kind of slumlords. And as she's coaching a younger kind of pickpocket, he gets caught, thrown in the prison, and she is sneaking into the castle to save him. And when she's there, she gets found out. Only the person who finds her kind of lies and says that she's one of these princesses here to compete. So she, in order to save her life, becomes this kind of fake princess with a hidden identity who is competing in these trials. Only you find out that if you lose in these trials, you die. And so now it becomes not only a trial to find the next queen, but also a trial for survival. And Rybet is finding the king and queen. There's something really sinister about them, and she does not like the princes at all, but she likes these teachers that are there to instruct her, and she's kind of falling for each of the instructors, while all the while knowing she can't be with these instructors because if she wants to survive, she's going to have to fall for one of these princes that she loathes. That's pretty much the gist of the first one, is just her trying to survive these trials. The princes, well, the male love interest are Zan, Tai, and Lee. These are the teachers that she's kind of falling for, and there's a lot of secrets. We'll just go with there's a lot of secrets and a lot of secret identities in more than one way. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was interesting premise. Obviously, you had that kind of life or death scenario situation, survival, a little bit of a reverse harem, love triangle, if you will. There is a little bit of spice going on. There are, like I said, secret identities. So a lot to really kind of hook you in. Some of it seemed a little like just ridiculous at times with, because you start catching on to what's going on and who's who pretty easily. And so it made certain things kind of ridiculous. And one thing, which was not the author's fault at all, it was such a hard thing for me voice actor wise, because the girl who voices Rybet and the other girls does a good job. Like she's fine, whatever. The guy is supposed to be voicing, yeah, he voices some of like the villains, but he's voicing these guy love interests that are supposed to be like the good guys. And the voice that he chose to use was like a weird, twisted version of Alan Rickman as Professor Snape. So it just, with the lines that were being read, it felt more like cringy and nails on a chalkboard when you would hear his voice sometimes. Like, I ended up getting it through it because the story was good, that I was just like, whatever. But there were sometimes every once in a while where like a line would pop out and he'd say it and I'd be like, ugh, no. Like, it was a bad voice matchup for what they were going. You know, nothing on the guy narrator. He was doing what he was doing, but it just wasn't fitting for me at all. But I ended up using this one for Romanceopoly, once again, for the Secret Stacks book club. And that was for the book club rebellion, to read a book with a wild twist or secret identities. And considering this book was full of secret identities, I ended up using it for that. So next up, we had another arc, and that was Hades, God of Longing, which was Gods of Obsidian, Book 1 by Kennedy Slope. This was a Hades and Persephone retelling that takes place, I think, in like Vegas or on the outskirts of Vegas. And it had some interesting premises to it. You find out that like the Greek pantheon has started there was something that started reaching its demise because people were changing, civilization was changing, and so the gods whose existence was based on the worship they were given, when they were losing that volume of worship for what they were in charge of, the gods were basically losing the energy that sustained their life. So it was kind of either you needed to kind of switch what you were associated with, which some of them did, or fade away. And so you have like Zeus, for example, has gone from being like the king of gods and thunder and lightning to the Zeus of like political things. So if you want political power, you're going to offer your prayers and things to Zeus. So was fitting. And then Hades became not just the god of the underworld, like he was always going to have the power because obviously mortality, but as an increase to his power, he took over like sin and desire and things like that, of like more of the darker gambling, whatever, hence Vegas. And so it was interesting to see how the gods that were still around, what they changed over and how it fit kind of the way that we know them. And you find out that Persephone had given her life thousands of years ago, and through some bargaining with the fates, she has been resurrected. And you found out that she was resurrected and she was on the run and hiding due to a cult seeking her for some purpose that I'm not going to go into because spoilers. Obviously, when this kind of happens, she does release a little bit of powers, which helps Hades find her, because obviously Hades has been looking for her, and he finds her and obviously wants to make her his again. And it's just kind of Hades trying to fall in love with her, have her fall in love with him, while this cult is trying to find her, while she's finding out that she is Persephone reincarnated. And it was interesting. I really liked the struggle that the new Persephone was finding. I'm sorry, I can't remember her current name in this life. Actually, I can probably look it up if I just do that real quick. Let's see. Ophelia. So her name's Ophelia, but she is Persephone. And when she meets with Hades and she finds out what's going on, she's kind of struggling with this idea that she is this goddess. She doesn't understand her power. She's like in denial of it. And then more or less she gets angry with Hades because he's just projecting so much of his love that he had for Persephone onto Ophelia, that she's upset because she's like, it's not like, she's thinking of herself as Ophelia. And so when he hears him calling her Persephone and you're my mate and I love you, and she's like, it's not me that you're loving, it's this Persephone that you knew before, like that's not me. And she's not accepting the fact that she's both, but at the same time she's struggling with the, well, do you only love me because of who I was when you knew me before, and instead of this life? And so it dealt with that, which was something that I really liked, because there's a lot of times where I've read about like these reincarnated mates and this next lifetime, and everybody seems to just accept it so easily, and oh yes, I am this person and I do feel these things, and yes, we're bound. Where I'm like, it has sat on the back of my mind, like, well, you know, do you really love this person, or do you only love them because of the relationships and the lifetimes you had before? Kind of like, for me, like the fated mate scenario, where it's like, do you only love this person because you're bound to them, you're mated to them, or do you love them for them? And sometimes books do a great job of establishing that, and others kind of, it's just like this, yeah, it's going to happen and this is the way it is. And so it always kind of sticks there. So I thought that that was really interesting in the way that that was done, and handled, and the struggles that were going on with that. I felt that was very real. There was a little bit of slow lag in it sometimes to me, because a lot of it seemed to just focus on, once again, oh, and we were training again for my powers, and we were training again for my powers, and we were training again for my powers. And a little bit of like that hot and cold, where she was ready to, Ophelia would be ready to kind of accept things and be with Hades, and then something would happen and she'd snap right back and be like, no, I don't want this. So there was kind of an interesting pull, and then as it gets going on and you're finding out like the cult's purpose and what's going on there, and everything starts culminating, it was going. There were some things towards the end that wrapped up a little too quickly. I would have liked a little bit more of the kind of chaos that was going on, and this kind of save her mentality that was going on. I wish that would have lasted a little bit longer, but it felt like that was wrapped up a little bit quickly. But still, it was really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what Pantheon member they're going to tackle next in this series. I think it's Zeus, which would be really interesting considering like how he was in this book. But I ended up giving it 4 stars, and this one, sadly, I didn't use for any prompts, but it was an interesting read, and like I said, it's an arc, so it's out now. And then the last book that I ended up doing for the month of March was another audiobook, and this was Seeker by Tate James. This is book 2 in the Royal Trials series. So once again, we're back with Rybet and Ty and Zayn, I think it's Zan and Lee. And in this part, we are picking up where, I don't really want to do any spoilers, but the trials are continuing, and this time Zan and Ty and Lee are assisting in the kind of search that the remaining princesses have to kind of find the crown of the queen who had been killed. Things are heating up between all the characters. Some identities have been discovered, some have not. And there are still, let's just say, there are layers to identities that you end up finding out. A lot of it, you kind of know where it's going. There's a lot of teasers that if you're paying attention, you're going to know pretty easily who's who and what's going on. But there are some things that start in this book that weren't really mentioned a lot before, and that is there's starting to be this mythological world, and there is a sort of pantheon that exists that's starting to make themselves known in this one, and that there is much more to what is going on with this kind of darkness and things that are going on, the people that are disappearing. And so it was a lot better written, I think, for me than the first book, because there's just so much more. You're already in this world. They're not having to set it up. You're not having to like kind of do these things. You're already in it, which I kind of like about like book 2s and things when they go that way, because you're just continuing with the action and the storyline. There's no real setup. You're just in it. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was really well done. Once again, we had the same voice actors, so obviously the guy was like, once again, nails on a chalkboard, but we made it through, and there was just kind of, like I said, there's a lot more like kind of steamy moments. There is the tension that's going on now as well, because each of these guys wants her for himself. So it's not so much a reverse harem, it's becoming kind of like this love triangle, love square thing. And Rybet is now trying to push them more away because one, she knows she has to end up with one of the princes, and two, she has to, you know, she doesn't want to break up these friends, these brothers that, you know, are the teachers. So she's trying to distance herself from them, which is creating further tension. So it was well done, and I ended up using this one for Romanceopoly. There were a lot of books for Romanceopoly this month, which I'm loving. So I ended up using this one for Romanceopoly as well, and I ended up using, I guess I actually reversed it. So Imposter, which we had talked about and I said that I used for a certain prompt, I actually ended up using that one for the book club rebellion prompt. I had mixed up the prompt, and the prompt for that was to read a backlist book that you think deserves more hype than recommend it to at least one person. And since I'm recommending these all to you, more than one person. And that I did for Imposter because it is a backlist book from Tate James. She has a bunch of different series out. And I do think it deserves more hype. I just came across it in the Libby app as something that was available and it sounded interesting, so I ended up going with it. So, I mean, I haven't really seen it in a lot of videos, so very much a backlist book that needs some hype. For Seeker, which is this one, we ended up using it for Plot Twist for the same book club. And that one is the one to read a romance with a wild twist or secret identity, because even though in book one there are secret identities and there are some twists, the twists were a lot more wilder in this one. I think like the big reveals for identities was bigger in this one. So, I mean, I could use them interchangeably if I really wanted to, but that was how I actually wrote it down for the challenge itself. So I have finished 3 out of the 4 secret stacks. So if I do one more prompt for this, I will have completed this club, and we have that under our belts for Romanceopoly, and we are off to a pretty good start for that. So that was basically it for the month of March. Now, obviously, at the end of March, the fantasy bingo, or the Reddit fantasy bingo challenge was up. This was kind of how I ended up finishing. Alas, we did not complete this challenge. Once again, year 2 fail. Is that going to derail me? No, because it was my fault. I feel like I did the prompts with books that I was going to be a little bit more interested in. I now know going forward kind of how to work the prompts to be more in the romantasy field for me to enjoy them, as well as just kind of definitely making sure that I don't put these aside for too long and wait on them. So definitely making sure that I start reading them more earlier on so that I'm not trying to crunch them all in towards the end of the month, because that obviously backfired astronomically on me with getting sick a few times, kiddos being sick, and just we waited too long. So we learned. Are we going to try it again? Absolutely. As of right now, obviously, it has all been released because the new one gets released April 1st. So we are underway with creating a list for that, and it's looking really good. So I will be sharing that with you shortly, and it'll be a whole new new trials, new challenges for that. But obviously, with Romanceopoly and Romance Bingo still going on, we are progressing through those pretty well, and we're just going to keep going. So other than that, that is, like I said, what we read for the month of March. Once again, I apologize for it being so late, but I hope that you guys will enjoy it. Let me know how March and I guess April have been going for you guys. Hopefully your allergies have not been as bad as mine. I really hope, because that was not fun. But that you guys are starting to enjoy what warm weather is coming your way. If you have been any part of the chaotic weather that has been going on in multiple areas in the US, you know, my thoughts and prayers are with you, that you guys are all staying safe, that your utilities are still working, you still have water, supplies, everything is just is running smoothly for you. And for those of you who have been impacted, you know, thoughts and prayers to you that everything will get back to where it needs to be, and you guys will all be, you know, safe and happy and everything going forward very soon. So with that, stay safe, stay warm, stay cool, stay hydrated. Remember your allergy medicines if you're still needing them at this time. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.